Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing well today. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be leaving my application in real time so you guys can see how it goes and you guys can hopefully learn a little bit. I have a little bit of like tips and tricks that I've learned over the time that I've been doing nails that I want to share with you guys to help you guys with your acrylic application. So the biggest tip for me when I was starting out, like my biggest mistake was I would just, put my brush in the monomer, put it in the powder, and then immediately put it on the nail. And then from there, immediately start swiping it, which was completely removing the product. So what you want to do is, obviously work on your liquid to powder ratio, which I'll be giving tips later on in the video as well. But you want to get your brush, get it wet, put it in your acrylic powder, and wait to let it polymerize. You want to let it have that chemical reaction to get that smooth, buttery consistency before you place it on the nail. And even when you place it on the nail, you want to just give it a second to kind of do its thing. Make sure you're pointing your nail down to allow gravity to help you move the bead down the nail. And this is also dependent on the temperature of your room, because if your room is hot, it's going to be, your nails are going to set super fast. And if it's cold, your nails are going to set super slow and be kind of runny. So you just want to adjust your timing based on that. But the general rule of thumb that I like to use is 5 seconds, or like 5 Mississippis. So you want to, dip your brush in the monomer, dip it in the acrylic powder, let it sit for like 5 seconds and let that polymerization happen, so you can get the best consistency on the nail. And another piece of advice I have is to keep your brush moist when you're doing blending of the beads. You want to make sure it's not too dry, or else your acrylic is going to get stuck in it. And if your bead seems to be setting a little bit too fast, if it seems to be dry, you can always dip your brush in the monomer and then put it on the bead, and it will help smooth it out and add moisture to the bead. So when it comes to the ratio of your monomer to acrylic, I can make a separate video on this if you guys want, and I probably will, but I like to use the 3-2-1-1-2-3 method. So I learned this from Young Nails, and it's a good general rule of thumb. Obviously, like I said, you're going to adjust it based on your temperature of your room and everything like that, and every product works differently, but I like to dip my brush in the monomer, tap it 3 times on the dapping dish, and then go into your acrylic 1 tap to get a small bead. For a medium bead, you're going to dip it in the monomer, tap it twice on your dapping dish, and then dip into your acrylic powder twice for a medium sized bead. And then for a large bead, you're going to go into your monomer, tap it once on your dapping dish, and then go into your powder 3 to 4 taps. And that's a general rule of thumb. You guys can start out to try practicing like that. I'll make a separate video about it to get more in depth. But when it comes to the cuticle bead, I use my brush to tuck the bead into the cuticle area. So I'm making sure to keep my brush in between the bead and the skin, making sure to aim the finger down to prevent flooding the cuticle. You don't want a bead that's too dry. You also don't want a bead that's too wet. For the cuticle bead, it's critical to have a really good consistency. And if you do flood, you can always, wipe off the product off the skin, but you just want to avoid that in general to prevent lifting. So when you're doing nails, you want to make sure that you're looking at your nails from all angles to ensure that you aren't missing acrylic. So you want to make sure you're keeping an eye out for any dips in the nail, because that means you're missing acrylic. And I think it's better to have too much acrylic on the nail that you can file off rather than to be missing acrylic, because if you're missing acrylic, sure, you can add it, but it's just not gonna, like, that far into the process of when you're filing, it's not gonna really be efficient. So I would rather put too much product and have to file it off than to be missing acrylic. So you just want to make sure you're looking like from the top of the nail, you're looking at all of your sides, down the barrel of the nail, you know, like down the barrel reference in it, like to a gun, like if you're looking like facing towards a gun. I'm sorry, that's bad, but like basically point your finger to your face and look at it that way to make sure that, you know, your right side, your nail isn't lopsided. It's not like there's not too much product on one side versus the other, or if you need to add a product. And as you guys can see, I'm like tapping downwards. I'm not really brushing the acrylic, I'm like tapping it, and I'm using a very, very light pressure, and I'm also using the very tip of my brush to guide that down. And I'm also holding my brush at the end of the brush. The more closer to the handle that you hold it, the more pressure you're gonna have. So I like to hold my brush really more towards the end, and then as it says, you can kind of start to tap it. But like I said, you really want to give it that time to just sit on the nail. And going in with this bead, tapping it to kind of accelerate the polymerization, and then I'm kind of pushing it upwards towards the cuticle, and right here I'm just going to blend it down a little bit. You can leave it for a little bit longer so you can allow it to set to act as your apex bead, but I'm going to add some more beads. So right here I'm just pushing I like to apply my cuticle bead not right at the cuticle, but a little bit below the cuticle. That way I can push it up into the cuticle. I think it's just easier for me that way, so I can prevent flooding. And like I said, to get it as close to the cuticle as possible, I do take my brush and push it in there, but I'm making sure to keep my brush in between the skin and the bead, if that makes any sense. And as your bead starts to get more firm and sets, then you can use the body of your brush to bring down the product and use more pressure if you find it setting a little bit too fast or towards the end. Then you can start to use more pressure and use the body of your brush, the bigger part of your brush. And the way that you're gonna get better, so that's the consistency you want of your bead. You want it to be like that, like just smooth. And as you can see, gravity is taking the bead down for the most part. I'm very gently patting it down, trying to use the tip of my brush, the tip of the bristles, to push it down, and just be sure to like keep it straight on your sidewalls. You just want to make sure it's like you're pushing it on the nail and keeping it on the nail rather than it like dripping over the nail. And I use several beads, but I'm definitely going to start working my way to fewer beads in order to save time and product. But feel free to use as many beads as you need to when you're starting out. You know, I know when you go to nail school they kind of pressure the 3 bead method, but honestly I say do what works for you. And especially with these longer nails, I do find myself having to use more beads, but obviously the shorter the nail, the less product and beads you're going to use. So that's at your discretion. You want to make sure you're continuously wiping your brush to ensure your acrylic isn't getting stuck. If there's stuck acrylic in your brush, it will start to take the product off of the nail, so you need to make sure it's clean. I would recommend cleaning your brush after every use. And what I do is I soak it in a mix of like half acetone, half monomer. And, you know, every 15-20 minutes I'm taking it out and then, you know, making sure, gently brushing to make sure the product's out. I use a napkin and I squeeze the brush in between the napkin. And then afterwards, when all the product is out, I do burp it in monomer, which is just, you know, like pushing it into the monomer and twirling it around so the air bubbles come out. And then I add some cuticle oil afterwards to keep it moist. So the general rule of thumb is the 3 bead method, which is your bead on the tip, the free edge, a bead at the apex, which is the stress area of your nail, and then a bead for your cuticle area. And you want your apex is the stress area of the nail, and it's where the free edge of your natural nail and your tip meet. So you want this to be the thickest part of your nail to prevent breakage, because that's where most of the pressure is. If you put a tip on your nail and you apply pressure, you'll see that the pressure is right there where you glue on the tip. So that's where you want your thickest part of your nail to be. And it doesn't have to be super thick, just thick enough to where you feel that it's like supported and it's not gonna just break if you like smack it on the wall or something like that. And as far as temperature goes, if it's too hot in your room, I would suggest getting like a fan or an AC or a cooler to try and cool down your beads, because if it's hot, your beads are going to set super fast, so you're just going to need to work really fast, versus when it's cold, your beads are going to take a while to set. So I would suggest, you know, getting a heater in your room or putting your dap-in dish in like some warm water or something. I've heard of people adding acetone, but I know that can change the chemical properties of the solution. So, you know, use that as your own discretion. But I do that sometimes when I find that it's too cold in my room, especially this winter with all of the storms and everything like that. I was really struggling with the temperature, and I didn't have an extra heater to put in my nail room, so I was just using warm water and acetone, and that kind of helped me. And you can also put your monomer on a candle warmer, like a wax warmer, to help with that. And you just want to take your time when you're learning. I know it can get frustrating working with acrylic, especially as a beginner. It's not going your way, you're not progressing as much as so-and-so, but you can't be in that mentality. Like, my biggest advice to beginners to prevent getting discouraged is don't compare yourself, because if you compare yourself, it just makes you feel like shit, like you get nowhere, and everybody's journey is different, you know. And when I was comparing myself, that's when I would want to give up the most, is when I was just like, oh, like, I don't have as many followers as her, I don't have as many, you know, like, sales as her, but you just got to keep your head down and work hard. That's my biggest piece of advice. Practice, keep your head down, and focus on you. Show support and love to your nail community, and you know, they'll love you back. So I'm gonna get into filing. Let me see. So when you get started with filing, you want to make sure your nails are ready. You want to tap your nails with the file and make sure you hear a clicking sound. If you hear the sounds a little dull, that means your product is not completely set yet, so you just want to wait a little bit. And I'm using an 80/80 grit file. You can also use 100/180. It's really up to you. You just want something that's gonna keep its shape, keep it straight. So you don't want a file that's gonna like bend when you're trying to file it. You want to invest in really good files so that you keep your edges straight as possible. And there I am checking my ring finger, my pinky aren't set yet, so I'm just gonna wait a little bit. If your nail file is bending or angled at all, it's gonna change the shape that you want. And since I'm doing square and I want to keep that square shape, I want to keep it straight, it's important for me to keep the file straight, because if you curve it in or angle it in just a little bit, then you're going to start to erase the angles of the nail, and you're going to turn it more into like a coffin or a ballerina shape. So you just want to be very aware of the angle that your file is at. And when I do file, I'm filing the sides, underneath the nail, and then the free edge. And I also file down vertically, as you can see right here, just to ensure a nice transition from the cuticle to the apex to the free edge. I like it to kind of be like a little like slope in a sense. And make sure you guys get a dust collector. It protects your clothes, your lungs, your skin. You don't want to develop any allergies, and you also want to protect your client from all that dust as well. Like, if you're doing a client and you don't have a dust collector, the dust is just going to go everywhere. She's going to be inhaling it. Hopefully you're wearing a mask so you don't, but you just also want to think of your client's health as well. I'm using a medium ceramic bit at a speed of 15,000 RPMs, just to debulk a little bit. And if you are a beginner, you just want to take your time and go as slow or fast as you need to. It really all depends on you with your e-file. I would suggest, yeah, like 15,000 to debulk, or even if you are more experienced, I would say 20,000 to debulk, but just, you know, make sure you know what you're doing so you don't take too much product off. And then I would say 3,000 to 4,000 RPMs if you're doing like natural nail prep work. You never want to go more than like 5,000 RPMs on the natural nail because you could risk burning your client. And around the cuticle area, I go 8,000 to 9,000 RPMs for the cuticle area. Again, you can go as fast or slow as you want, but this is just like my kind of the speeds that I use and that I'm comfortable with. And I actually sometimes I use a cuticle bit to seal my cuticle area, and then sometimes I use a sanding band, and I use a medium grit sanding band to seal my cuticle. So the main thing with an e-file is you just want to keep it moving. You don't want to keep it in one spot for too long, because then you'll do what's called the ring of fire and burn yourself or your client. So that's the most important thing, is to just keep that file moving. Another important thing and tip is to stabilize with your pinky. So as you're using your e-file, you want to stabilize your hand that you're holding the file with any of your fingers really on your other hand, just to make sure that you have it steady. And you want to let the e-file do the work for you. You don't need to apply too much pressure. That can cause dents in your nail. It can burn you. So you just want to keep not a super light pressure, but I would say like a medium pressure. You don't need to go ham with the e-file on the pressure. So I'm going in and kind of creating my form. I like to go vertically like this. I like to do e-file and nail file. I prefer filing with a nail file. I don't know what it is, it just does it for me, but e-file definitely does help cut down time and everything like that, and I just go in with both. And I'm just making sure that my acrylic is smooth vertically and I don't have any dips or anything like that. And afterwards I'm gonna go in with my sanding band just to kind of get it a little bit smoother. After I go in with my sanding band and seal the cuticles and smooth out the nails, at the end I go with a 240 buffer, and then I buff out the nails. So here I'm going with my sanding band around my cuticle area. Like I said, I'm just keeping it moving. I'm going at a speed of now 9,000 RPMs. I'm just taking, like, I want the cuticle area to be as flush with the nail as possible, so it kind of looks like your artificial nail is growing out of your nail bed, if that makes any sense. And like I said, I'll go into more detail in other videos. But yeah, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if any of these tips are helpful to you guys. I wish I had kind of like more in-depth tutorials, and I will be hoping to provide. Leave any suggestions below. But yeah, make sure to leave a like. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys are doing right now. What are you guys doing while you're watching me? I always like to know. I'm chismosa. Are you guys eating anything? Are you guys watching anything? Are you guys kind of just watching this to learn? Or are you kind of just watching it because it's therapeutic for you to watch nail videos? I love to just watch nail videos sometimes too. It's also important to file under your nail. If you have any acrylic that fell under your nail, you always want to make sure, especially if you're doing a client, to check under your nail. Make sure you don't have any acrylic in there. Make sure you clean up underneath the nail as well. That's just going the extra mile for your client, and you know, showing that you care, and every little bit of care matters with your nail. So I actually did a little hack on my TikTok. If you guys don't follow me on TikTok, go ahead and give me a follow. I provide a lot of tips and tricks there too as well. And you can use cuticle oil to buff out your nail so it won't have any scratches. Just make sure to cleanse it with like an alcohol or acetone based cleanser, just to clean off any of the oil so it doesn't mess with any of the base coat or gel polish that you're going to be applying. And this process of buffing with the 240 is just to ensure that you have a super smooth base for any nail art that you're going to do. And obviously you want to wipe away all that dust. I cleanse it with an alcohol wipe. You can go in with Young Nail Swipe if you have it. Just anything really that's going to get rid of all the dust. So this is how I like to do my French tips. I kind of just do the tips where as long as I want them to do, and then I'll go in with the French tip. I'm gonna try out some different methods though, because I feel like sometimes when I do this, the French tips become uneven. So, you know, do what works for you. I would recommend trying out different methods, especially with French tips. You know, they look simple, but they're actually pretty tough, especially because it's such a like a quote unquote like simplistic design. When it comes to simplistic designs, that means you have no room to mess up. So that's what makes it so hard. Normally when I do nail art, I will apply like a base coat or a matte top coat just to give it an even smoother surface. Sometimes when I don't, right now it didn't bleed, but like sometimes when I don't put like a base coat or some type of coat before doing nail art, I noticed the gel kind of tends to bleed in the little scratches of that were left behind with buffing. So that's where that buffing hat comes in to help, and then, you know, it gives you that really smooth surface for nail art. So I'm just filling in. I'm using a Wistonia medium liner brush. Liner brushes are so helpful when you're doing French tips, and I feel like the longer the liner brush, like the more helpful it is for me, especially because I do long nails. Obviously, if you're doing, you know, shorter nails, you want to use a shorter brush. Filling in any extra areas, I'm going to cure that for 60 seconds, and then I'm going in with this gorgeous color to add some shimmer. It has beautiful red reflex in it that you guys will see later in the reveal. I turned on the flash and it just looks so beautiful. My sister actually specifically, I don't know if she bought it or if she like requested for me to buy it, but like this is her special color that she loves to get on her fingernails and her toes, so shout out to you, sis. I don't think I would have discovered it without her, so I love this. And I just applied the red as a base just so the glitter can have a more opaque base and not be so transparent. I wanted it to be really opaque. I don't like really transparent glitter looks, so that's why I did that. And then I'm just applying this to go in with my brush to fill in the sides and everything like that. I mean, look at that color. It has red glitter and like a little bits of like silver white glitter. It's so pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the nail art. I went in with a dotting tool and just did like 2 dots on the side and then 1 dot a little bit higher. And then I'm just using the existing polish from those dots to kind of just drag it in towards the center. And I'm doing little like scratchy lines as the design. It's kind of self-explanatory. I'll go ahead and let you guys just watch this bit and give my voice a little break. So on top of the hibiscus, I kind of also wanted to give it a little 90s vibe. So I'm also doing that curved nail and those little dots. I just love, I feel like it really added a lot of dimension to the set rather than just the hibiscus flowers. And my boyfriend was actually telling me, and I was actually thinking about it, like this look would hit with orange and the hibiscus flowers. Like I considered doing orange as well, but I wanted to do red. I just did. But yeah, let me know if you guys try it with orange. If you guys recreate this look, feel free to tag me. I would love to see your guys' work. Um and let me know what you guys think about this more like kind of in-depth talk through tutorial. I would really love to do this more just to help you guys out. I love to teach. I got my bachelor's degree in education, but education is not for me. Plus, I fell in love with nails, so I can use that background to nails and teach. So afterwards, I'm just gonna go in with the KUPA Top Coat. If y'all haven't tried that, I suggest giving it a try. I love the paddle brush on the KUPA, the clear paddle brush. Oh, I don't know what it is about it, but it just does it for me. Like, you guys will see right now. I don't know what it is about that clear, but it just gets me. But just a little piece of advice when you guys are doing nail art, you know, take your time and then make sure you're stabilizing your dominant hand that you're doing the nail art on with something. I normally use my pinky, but it's up to you, whatever works for you. And then also when you're doing nail art, flash cure it in between for like 10 seconds just to make sure you aren't smudging anything like as you proceed on the other nail art. I'm wiping the sides to keep that shape. Good to cure that for 60 seconds. And look at that red glitter I'm talking about, you guys. Y'all, let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, watch my other videos. And yeah, I just love this set. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And let me know what you guys think. Y'all take care, okay? Stay safe out there. Bye, you guys.